Good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we only have 16 people who want to be a
Good
millionaire.
morning.
Good morning. Now, Robert, what I forgot is I guess all the people who are already millionaires are probably skipping it, right?
I came on anyway, just to hear, what I could have done differently,
Just to moderate, so you could have been a triple millionaire.
something like that. But I would like to say that I'm very excited that the air quality is down to 37% this morning. So that's like a huge improvement for us, and it's safe to go out again.
Yeah, it was, I felt like there was a fire right next door for 2.5 days, right?
Exactly.
So, let's see, we have 23 on right now. Give it a minute. So, one of our guests on here said, "What is a millionaire?" And I naively define it as somebody who has a net worth of $1 million. And I think that's probably not that impressive right now because you can't even retire if you're a millionaire. You probably need to have some other sources and streams of income to retire comfortably. But that was my definition of a millionaire. And
So I had a mentor years ago. He was an older gentleman from town that I grew up in, and he was in the liquor business. And his name was Nate Whitkin. He owned Whitty's Liquors, if you ever heard of it. Anyway, he said to me, he said, "Bob, a millionaire is not somebody who has $1 million. He said, a millionaire is somebody who makes $1 million a year. That's a millionaire." That was his refined definition, having grown up in the Depression and everything else. That's what he defined it as.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably more appropriate today than it even was then.
yeah, right. How long ago was that, Rob?
Oh, probably 25 years ago. Keep in mind, he was already a multimillionaire, so he could afford to say it that way.
So what's interesting, Rob, when you mention that, like, who would expect Whitty's liquor store, probably a hole in the wall, for that guy to be a multimillionaire?
Yep. Well, he had 3 of those hole in the walls, but it's true. Who would expect it? He was the millionaire next door. He lived very conservatively. He and his wife lived in the same house that his wife grew up in Perth Amboy. They had 3 kids that all went to Ivy League colleges. One was a Harvard law graduate, but you would never know it to look at him.
Yeah. So they're not driving their net worth.
No, not by a long shot.
So I have a little presentation here. Oh, can you put that on mute? Yeah. Let's see. Becoming a millionaire. So I have the wrong date. So becoming the traits of a millionaire are perseverance, independent thinking, sales skills, vision, professional development, passion, and investing. Does that surprise anybody?
Nope.
Pretty basic skills, and a lot of these are pretty relevant to real estate. And when you look at some of the stories that we have, I think it might have been on the peer-to-peer, or maybe it was a week ago's Mastermind. We talked about some of the agents that have closed some pretty big transactions. It looks very glamorous, but if you're really to dissect it, there are many twists and turns where it looks like something's going to go the wrong direction. And those who are the millionaire mindsets in real estate, they know that the outcome is going to be favorable because we've been here before, we've done this, and we can get it fixed. And I was actually talking to one of our associates who actually got a lead for an $8 million buyer, and I'm like, is that a real buyer? And they said, yeah, they're going to buy. I know it. And there was no hesitation in the voice. There was absolute certainty. And it's like if you take a listing, you know it's going to sell. So these are the traits, not just for real estate, of those people, the liquor store owners and the financiers that are successful. Here's a little bit of a research report. There are more millionaires in the US than you think. Here are some statistics about the millionaires. 22 million millionaires in the US. How many people live in the US approximately? Who wants to make a guess?
100 million?
Probably.
Is there something closer to
200 million?
300?
I think it's probably closer to 360
It's the
million.
300.
at the moment, it's
400
like
million.
340, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
expected to be
350.
it's expected to be 400 million people by 2050. Crazy.
Yep. So we have about 40% of the millionaires on the planet are here. 8.8% of US adults are millionaires. So it's not as rare air as it used to be. You know, almost 10% of the almost 10% of the adults are millionaires, and there are about 62.5 million millionaires globally, up 11% from just 3 years ago. The world's 100 richest individuals earn their first million on average at age 37. The average millionaire today is 57. 42% of millionaires are baby boomers, and 19 as of 2013, maybe that's supposed to be 23. 19% of millionaires are millennials. Millionaires by industry, just 15% of the millionaires are senior leadership roles. And I think the distinction there is senior leadership versus entrepreneurial roles. 1/3 of these millionaires had never made six figures, and less than 1/3 of them made an average of 100 a year through their career. The 5 careers most commonly held by millionaires included engineers, accountants, lawyers. Managers and teachers were 2 other careers that represented in the surveyed group of millionaires. The top industries for producing millionaires: finance and investment, technology, manufacturing, fashion and retail, healthcare, and go real estate. And Bruce, I think you qualify for finance. So we're all included here.
You know, an interesting stat, Dale Carnegie, 90%, one thing in common that all millionaires have, 90% of them own real estate. So pretty appropriate. We all sell that, just FYI.
So interesting that you brought that up, Bruce. When I was doing a study for our investing in real estate, most of the millionaires actually haven't been explicit real estate investors, but they've got the majority of their wealth from their primary residence, which is pretty amazing. And of those who have retirement accounts and own real estate, it's a slight majority that have more money in the equity in their home than they have in their retirement account after contributing for a career when they retire, which is pretty amazing. How many times do you think on average a millionaire has business ventures that fail before they succeed?
Many times.
At least once.
At least once. Anybody want to guess what that number is?
4 or 5.
Over 3.
3.5 times. You're a smart group here.
Wow.
So the average millionaire has had 3 failed ventures. And when I was doing my research, it's amazing when you look at all the people that we put on a pedestal: Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, all these people, Warren Buffett. You know, interesting story for today's research is Warren Buffett was actually going to sell his stake in Berkshire Hathaway to the majority shareholder of Berkshire Hathaway. The contracts were done, and when he went to the closing, he tried to lower it by 1/8 of a point. And Warren got so upset that he said, "Screw it, I'm going to buy you out," on a buy-sell agreement. Talk about changing history, right? So anyway, here's some interesting statistics that I think are relevant to us. There's rounded up to 22 millionaires in the US, almost 40%. I think we talked about this. New Jersey has the highest percentage of millionaires in amongst any state. It's an interesting fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have thought Connecticut.
Because the houses are so damn expensive. if you're
Hey,
counting
Rob,
real
what
estate
defines a
equity.
millionaire?
What defines a definition of a millionaire is somebody who has a net worth of $1 million. Okay, so that would mean from an
Just 1
accounting
million?
yeah, I know it's not that impressive, Mickey.
And only 8% of the of US population has that?
Only
Yeah.
4.4% have over 3 million. So
Wow.
you'd be surprised. It's considered rich if you make a $500,000 in this country now.
Well, it's not earning $1 million, Bruce. It's a net worth.
Net
We're
worth.
not
Well, no,
talking
but
about-
I'm even saying earning. It's changed. Yeah.
Yes. So interestingly enough, New Jersey has the highest percentage of millionaires, and Florida has no state income tax. So I wonder why we're in New Jersey and Florida, Bruce. Can you figure that one out?
Because I love all these real estate professionals I work with up here. It's the only reason I can figure it out. It's certainly not because I don't want to be in the sunshine and living on the water. That's for sure.
So let's see. And then a little statistic that, oh yeah, the one I figured out here is the 56 millionaires represent, 0.7% of the population, yet they control 46% of the net worth. So it's less than 1%, less than 0.75%, and they control almost half of the net worth on the planet. Now, why do we have this conversation here? It's not about being greedy and having the highest bank account, but it's more about what you can do and why you're looking to amass your $1 million or more. Was anybody surprised? Does anybody have any preconceived notion that a lot of these people that are uber successful haven't, had massive failures? Because I don't think I can recall anybody's biography or anybody I've known personally where they've ever gone straight to the top without failing along the way.
It's
You know?
part of your growth. It's part of growth. That's what gives most millionaires the tenacity to become millionaires. Their failures. I think a lot more millionaires are built on the foundation of failure than anything else. It's what drives us to be better. Just
We
my
fail
opinion.
forward.
Exactly.
Rob, question. How many of those millionaires became that way from inherited wealth?
I don't really have that statistic. But based upon the makeup of it, Dan, I'm going to guess that most of them are self-made because they're in the let's see, the baby boomer generation, and it's possible that they inherited it, but I think a lot of them, being that $1 million in 2023 is not that staggering of a number. I think it's more of your working class. Maybe the billionaires, there's like Mars family and Walmart that are billionaires from inheriting. But if you look at that list of the 100 billionaires, you have a majority of them that are self-made. And I'm assuming that would be, consistent with the millionaire population.
Right.
So anyway, with regards to, somebody made a comment about wealth in real estate. Was that you, Bruce?
Yes, sir.
I
I just want to mention them too.
Yes, it was Bruce.
Millionaire, with the number being where it is, over half the millionaires are not, they made it. If you make 100 grand and you're 56 years old and you did the right things, you know, being millionaires is a little different. I think you're talking more the characteristics of the Uber, right? The ones that are like, you could become a millionaire by just doing the right thing with a dual household income. And a lot of millionaires are, you know, many of them are that way. You know, not all those baby boomers are entrepreneurial, self-employed.
So Bruce, sadly, and I say this with a heavy heart, there are a lot of people that I've come across in my career in real estate that have made a lot of money, have not made wise investments, and basically work, you know, into their elder years, not because they love it, but because they have to. And I'm guessing, Bruce, you probably have seen some of those people, and maybe even done their mortgages in their elder years. Would you agree
Yeah.
without naming names?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, yeah, I mean, don't forget, we're talking, you know, 95% of the country's population aren't, right? So, or 90%. So yeah, there's a lot of folks that,
And in terms of business, I think one of the ways to build true wealth is not by, you know, earning all your money, it's by investing it. And most entrepreneurs that I know, when the business is cyclical, you know, Bruce, where do they get the capital to survive through the winter of their business season in many cases?
haven't
Usually,
been prudent with their savings and investments.
or it's usually like if they own their building, right? You know, hey,
Passive income.
I bought my building 15 years ago. It's almost paid off. I need to borrow some money. You know, what's the first thing the bank asks? What type of collateral do you have, right? You have a piece of real estate. And there are some people that I've come across in my career. There is an individual who sold real estate and basically was a second income and invested all their money. By the time they retired, they were worth $20 million from the real estate, and their spouse's pension was worth less than $1 million. And these things, you know, are lessons that I wish, you know, could be conveyed to people early on in their career so that they can make a difference.
The rule of
And
thumb is 7% return doubles every 7 years. So think about it. If you save 100 grand, every 7 years doubles. You're not that many 7 years away from turning 100 into the million.
right, and the magic of compounding too, Bruce, because after 21 years, 1 million turns into 2 million turns into 4 million turns into 8, and you're retired. Right? There's your 800
Yeah.
grand. So anyway, working harder is not the solution to, you know, building health where your money can work for you. You know, having wealth where your money can work for you is part of the business planning of your personal life, as opposed to you know, working and putting money into after taxes or before taxes into a retirement account. You know, I've seen people, you know, buy a piece of real estate and, you know, buy the right piece of real estate, and in 3 years it doubles. And I'm looking at some of you in Florida where you've seen some crazy appreciation, and that could be more than people amass in their entire lifetime of savings by a long shot.
So I'm working with clients right now on an offer on a second home for $1 million. And I was thinking, when I looked at their, you know, profile on Fidelity, and I talked to their investment banker, and I'm like, you know, wow, that's all they have. I thought they had more. And then I'm thinking, you know, just on one property that I bought during the pandemic, I made $500,000, you know, in equity flipping it in 23 months. And I'm like, this person's worked her whole life, and she's 68 years old. And I'm like, I made half of what she has in that account in one flip in 23 months. That's quite interesting to think about.
It is, right? That goes towards the question of income or wealth, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I invested in in real estate that appreciated a ton in Dominican. I invested in real estate that appreciated a lot in the East Coast and the West Coast of Florida. And I look at the clients that we've represented, and I think, you know, everybody that bought from me during the pandemic has done what I've done or better. So many people have used that, whether it be to make a note and say, okay, that's their nest egg if they're my age or younger, or they've used that to leverage to open up another business. Like I've invested in a franchise where I'm now the owner of, you know, the rights. I have the rights to a franchise for 3 counties. And I'll be able to open up multiple locations in the next 5 years. And I won't have to, you know, do anything necessarily if I don't want to in 5 years. So I think there's so many different ways to look at it. When I hear the word millionaire today, there's so many people that they have $1 million in 1 property, 2 properties, and they make a few $100,000 and they're like, I'm a millionaire. I'm like, but there's so many people that have made so much more with investing on a couple of real estate deals that they've then used that money to leverage with, I think are much smarter.
So David, do you think a lot of millionaires lose their millionaire status?
I think, like you mentioned, or somebody mentioned, maybe it was Bruce, that a lot of people make some bad investments. And a lot of people are not advised by the right people. They have the wrong people in their corner. But I think all the people that I'm close with, that I look to or respect in many different industries, they're only growing because they're calculated, they're taking risks, but they're not all taking the craziest risks. A lot of them got out of things that didn't make sense. They've come back to real estate. Real estate continues to be the #1 investment in the US for everybody that I know that's at the top. I've represented multiple billionaires in my career. Let's see, at least 6 or 7 billionaires. And I talk to them about how they've built their wealth. And, you know, some of them, they've inherited major portfolios and fortunes from their parents to get them started, of course. But others, they started buying up land before others got the idea. And, you know, I took a risk to come over to the West Coast. I took a risk to come over to Dominican and it started investing in land as well. And I came from nothing. My mom was a teacher. But, you know, one day at a time, things are going up in value. You see communities being built out of nowhere, Bush being knocked down, and major companies investing. You have to follow these big developers. You have to follow these major companies and think they wouldn't be here, or they wouldn't be there, or they wouldn't be going to do this if it wasn't going to make them hundreds of millions of dollars.
So I don't have actual statistics for this, but I think I have anecdotal advice or anecdotal knowledge. I think most people who win the lottery, the statistics are the majority of them die broke. Has anybody else heard that?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
they spend it right away. They don't know. They don't go to a money manager or a financial advisor and say, let's start planning for the future. They start buying all the things they wish they could have had at a younger age, probably. Oh, I would agree. Most of them go broke really quick. I mean, so many singers and athletes. I think it's NFL players that have very little on average after, it's like 7 or 8 years after they get out of the NFL. But then you look at certain other athletes that have now, look at a Magic Johnson. I think I don't know how many Burger King franchises he owns. He's super wealthy. You know, look at Shaquille O'Neal.
But I think that's the new exception, David. But I think a lot of people who don't understand money, when they get it, it leaves them as quick as it comes to them.
Sure.
I have a favorite saying that somebody once said to me: it's not what you earn, it's what you save and what you invest that really
100%.
matters.
All day.
Yeah. So
it's also to do with a blueprint. They have the wrong blueprint.
right now, here's something that I find to be, you know, comforting. I don't recommend you losing your money, but if you amassed $1 million and then you lose it, if you know how to do it, you can do it again. right? You've decoded it. So that's why I think a lot of the millionaires and multi-millionaires and billionaires, they've earned it, they've lost it, they've gotten it back, and they've gotten it back in magnitudes, right? Instead of a million, I have a billion, or I have 20 million, right? So, the mindset of becoming a millionaire is not just about, greed and status. It's about, what do you do? Like, what's your purpose for having money, right? And I think what your purpose for having money is also probably drives a lot of your, a lot of the traits that back a millionaire. Like, what's your perseverance? Like, what's your why? Sales skills, maybe, that goes to professional development to improve your sales skills, right? Do you hang around other people that share common goals? Helps your vision, helps your confidence. I think if you don't have passion for anything, and Dave, your mom was a teacher, hopefully, she had passion for that, and that kind of wore off on you into a different career. And if you don't invest, you're basically just the hamster on the wheel, right? You're that NFL player that, maybe you have some really great years, but then you just burn through your cash. You're living the lifestyle at your highest year earning, and not being practical in your money management. Okay. There are a lot of things that we talked about here, for example, and it's, in a way it's sad, but in a way it's a lesson for all of us. David, you had made as much money doing a flip, which I assume that you didn't work full time on that flip, correct?
No, I had somebody help me. I paid them, and I could have made a little bit of profit, but no, I saw an opportunity in West Boca. We were also buying another home in West Boca, and I said, this is the time, we got to double down, let's go all in. And it was during the pandemic, and I had just come back from a visit to my office in Dominican Republic, and I saw a property, and with the same day I wrote an offer. And I think part of all this not that you have to have a partner, but I mean, if you have a spouse that can help out and make you feel confident in pulling a trigger, it can help immensely. I know that I've done a lot before I met my wife, but since I met my wife, I've been making so many more big moves when it comes to investing, whether it's real estate or other things. And I can't say enough about having somebody by your side that believes in what you bring up to the table and say, hey, listen, honey, this is a good idea.
And,
Hey, Rob.
that's a great point. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Was that Rob Durso who?
No,
chimed in?
that's me, Robert Graham.
Oh, Robert Graham, how you doing?
Hey, buddy. What's resonating me regarding this particular mastermind is that the importance of failure and what it teaches you, and what you learn from your failures, and learning things the hard way sometimes is the better teacher. And as I look back at all my failures and given an opportunity to do it all over again, of course, I would make way better decisions.
I mean, I think as long as you don't repeat the process, that's what, unfortunately, the learning it by failing is a much more valuable lesson than having somebody tell you about it, right?
That is correct. True story.
There's a stat, Rob, that I was just pulling up as you were talking. It speaks to what Robert says, and also to the age buckets, so 40%, another 20%, 63% of millionaires in the country own one or two homes, but yet the average millionaire that's a millennial owns 3 properties for 1.4 million. So that risk tolerance range of when they're young, when they have those opportunities, that's changed, because the older generation millionaires are not. It's the real estate component is clearly, the numbers are different. So three properties owned by millennial millionaires for an average net worth of 1.4 million, whereas it's pretty different, and only 8% of all millionaires own more than 5 properties. So
Is that the debt of those property? That's just what those 3 properties are worth? Or
No,
that's
I
with
mean,
their
I just
cash and
pulled
other
up this.
assets?
I was just pulling up the numbers because I thought it was interesting. I felt like at certain ages, you have a different risk tolerance when you make most of your money, when you do whatever, knowing what to do with that. Even, all of us looking back that aren't, in a millennial age group, things I wish I did differently with money and what have you. But it's interesting that real estate really seems to be something that has become more mainstream for an investment with the newer millionaire generation than in the past.
Well,
So I
one
just,
thing,
I just wanted to add something to what David had said earlier about the support of a spouse. When I was getting ready to exit the clothing industry, the garment industry, I went to my wife and I told her, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't. And she, had all the confidence in me, even to the extent that she understood that I was going to get like a home equity line of credit to carry us for a while until I really started getting going in whatever my next venture was going to be. And ultimately I decided on real estate, and working my way out of that, of that transition phase. I ended up doing so much better in real estate than I had thought I was doing so well in the garment industry. So yes, so there is, and I couldn't have done it without the support of my wife, all through the process. She understood the hardships we would go through, but she saw she had the faith in me to know that we were going to come out the other side. So I think that, the risk tolerance is significant in growth. And I think that, I was 55 when I made that change, so that, I certainly would say that the people who younger than that would have an easier time of making that decision than I did. But that, we're never locked in, we're never totally, stuck. And that's the important thing.
so Robert, talking about the support of a spouse, I think it's also about who you surround yourself with when you leave your home as well.
Mhm.
Are they good mentors? Do they inspire you, or are they catty people that are jealous of your success? Right. In this business, we see a lot of people that are jealous, and it's very, very sad, because when you hang around people that are thriving and succeeding, it winds up becoming contagious. And jealousy and envy is also something that can, really put a monkey wrench in a success plan.
I was just talking about this morning with a couple people, including Fazia. Expanding from the East Coast to the West Coast, because I see a big vision for Southwest Florida, Naples to Tampa, obviously based here in Sarasota County. There are people even within our brand of Remax that are starting to get jealous. I've actually just been asked to leave Mastermind. I said, I'm a member of 4 masterminds that are very powerful, and I give nuggets. I get nuggets every single time. There's so much value provided, so much opportunity to connect, build relationships, do referrals. And some people, they just can't take a little competition with hundreds and hundreds of miles of real estate to sell. It's unbelievable. But that's what happens when you know what you're doing and you bring, it's crazy.
David, it's like
Hey, Rob.
Yes.
Hey, Marie, sorry I have to cut you off. I just want to say, Robert, that's a great story. Very inspirational. You should be very proud of yourself.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank-
Thanks for sharing, Robert. Those people that don't see the world as an abundance, they see it as a scarcity, right? So that your gain is their loss, or your gain, somehow puts them down the ladder a step or two. That's in my opinion, that's deadly. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to be around, successful people who are going to bring you up. And if you're worried about how David Haller got his, $2 million listing and why that one shouldn't have been yours, this might not even be the right business for you, because you're going to internalize it, and you're probably going to have an ulcer and high blood pressure because of that, instead of, you know, getting juiced by seeing other people succeed and sharing ideas.
100%.
I mean, and David, you're you've been around a lot of people, but I noticed that, you know, you're making the effort to come up and meet with the team leader, which is, some might say, inconvenient, right?
Yeah, I'll come up to see you on Tuesday, Wednesday, leave on Thursday, and then the following week I'm in New Orleans for Luxury Forum, and then I get to finally go to my honeymoon. It's been long time coming, to Greece in July. But you know, it's about making the effort to make the rounds, meet everybody, connect the dots, you know, let everybody know who you are, where you're at, what you can offer them and their clients, and build a relationship in person. I'm all about the face-to-face and the handshake and building rapport and spending time building real relationships.
You know what? You reminded me. I had actually put a call into a person, one of our agents that is kind of taking a little step back to take care of his family, and I had a conversation with him last night. And I just wish I had more time to have more of these conversations. One of the things that he talked about was, you know, Rob, there's this mechanic that I sold him 2 houses. He made a lot of money off of me. We had a great relationship. His niece got her real estate license, and they sold their $800,000 or $900,000 house in Wayne, New Jersey, with their niece. And I just really felt betrayed. He's like, I want to give him a piece of my mind. You know, I want to stop going to my mechanic. I've been going to him for 30 years. He's like, am I wrong? And I think I gave him good advice, but I'm just curious, what would you do in that circumstance? And not necessarily David, anybody on the call. So you've sold somebody a couple of properties. You've been going to this guy for 30 years. He's a great mechanic. And now his niece gets her license, and you just put it on the MLS and it sells, and there's a $900,000 sale that you counted on being yours gone.
I would be humble enough to look in the mirror to determine where I went wrong to not get that opportunity. And then I would ask the mechanic, how did I not earn your business? And I would give him a disclaimer and ask him to be very candid and very honest with me.
But I think
Right.
sometimes there's just a loyalty factor to family that you can't, remove. There's not much you can do about that. That's my
Right.
first.
So Mickey and Robert, let's just assume that you know, he went, you know, he got the nod before the final decision was made. You know, and then he went and said, hey, you know, I did some research, you know, your niece has only done 1 rental, never sold a house. You know, do you want to trust this, right? I mean, that can go one way or another, right?
Yeah.
You still might
Well,
wind
I
up
would
not
say it
getting
can
it.
only go one way.
If it's a niece and it's a
Say it
family and it's a
doesn't-
very close family, I think that's a tough one, personally.
So
Right.
what's happened in my experience a number of times over my career, a number of times. You see this situation pop up, your first instinct, oh my God, are you kidding me? $2 million listing, 2 million, 2.5, whatever it may be. That person can easily let it drop and fall apart, and you just pick up the pieces and you close the deal. How many times is it better to be the second, sometimes the third agent involved with the client, whether it's buying or selling? Sometimes it's buying, and that agent so new has sold 1 or 2 or 3 homes. I see this all the time. I just got a referral from somebody who was actually referred to an agent who just moved here from the Midwest, who is promoting himself as a great agent. He's only sold a few homes in the West Coast of Florida, actually in Florida in general. And I had to pick it up and show them, you know, we could do the job in very quick time. But, you know, family, it's you just feel like sometimes they feel like they have to give this person a shot. They're coming into the business. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no real thing that you missed or didn't step you didn't take. It's just for the sake that, hey, listen, I need to give her a shot. Everybody deserves a shot at one point. They are a family member. I mean, I could have been upset my entire career. Right before I got my license, I think it was 2004. I got licensed 05. In 04, my uncle, who came from the street with nothing, built over 110 unit portfolio he's from Dorchester, Massachusetts. Okay. Ended up running multiple Morgan Stanley offices in Boston. He accumulated all these things, but the last 40 units he bought in my first 2-3 years of real estate. I could have skyrocketed from the beginning and not taken the time to build my name and not taking the time to, you know, go from one project to another and grow the numbers. But you look at it and you just use that to push forward.
So did you ever have a point in your career where you have to take a zig and then you zag back and you're like grateful for that?
Man, multiple times I've made money and lost money. That's why this is an interesting call for me to see what I wish more people spoke up and talked about what it means for them, the word millionaire. You know, if they have 1 or 2 or 3 properties that they say are worth, you know, a certain amount of money. Bruce had mentioned the younger ones are 1.4 with that type of risk. I've taken multiple zigzags, and when you are in my background with luxury development, and you have a project where you make a ton of money, and then you're waiting for your next project, you're doing some general real estate, you're doing some deals, you're paying your bills, saving a little bit of money, but not what you're used to doing. And you have certain expenses and certain type of lifestyles, and you know, you get accustomed to flying a certain way and living a certain way. It's not easy because you've gotten to a certain point. So to go backwards and that whole failing forward and learning from these experiences have been the best teacher. Also talking about, you know, you are like the 5 people you surround yourself with most. I'm not afraid to leave a group or to lose somebody because I'm gaining somebody else. I have more time to give energy to people that are going to be, you know, going where I'm going, or they're already at where I want to go. That's why I've aligned with you and Fazia and left another Remax office, because we have a similar vision.
So that's a lot to digest there, David, but I want to share with you what my response was to this person. And I think it's going to provoke some thought amongst most of us. You know, I said to him, I said, you know, don't find a new mechanic. Don't be angry. I said, go visit the mechanic, congratulate him on the sale of his house with sincerity, and ask him, you know, who do you know that you could refer to me that could maybe make this a little easier for me, that can help me out. And I will tell you that I've had the sympathy referral exceed the lost opportunity many, many, many times in my career. Did anybody on this call ever have somebody that didn't give you a piece of business and then made up for it by giving you like 10 times the amount of business as a consolation prize because they felt bad about it?
Yes, I've had that. I've had referrals when I didn't get the original.
In sales,
I
you got to take the high road. Got to take the high road. You cannot, you know, there's always that next opportunity. And I mean, unless the guy's a shit mechanic, then maybe you could get a little aggravated. But at the end of the day, you gotta take the high road.
Going there for 37 years, Bruce, I doubt it's a shit mechanic, right? I mean, they had a relationship and it hurt. So I'm going to tell you, you know, there's an agent in our company that had a client that was looking to buy a property in Mendham for $2 million, wound up buying without them, and felt bad, called our agent up and said, can you help me with my investment portfolio? I think they've sold about 16 or 17 million dollars worth of real estate on a referral basis, and that's just the start. And I know that this is a completely passive activity because I saw a referral check that I thought was a closing, and I sent a little text message like I normally do. Hey, congratulations on your sale, right? And they said, what sale? And then I looked it up and it was a referral fee for like 14 grand from a commercial real estate out of state. And this is from somebody who didn't buy from them. Okay. So this is the picture that I just want you to think about is, you know, anger would get him nowhere. And it was very very random. I hadn't spoken to the person in probably 5 or 6 months. I knew what he was going through. And I just, saw his name on a report and I'm like, let me give him a call. And I think all this transpired from, just making, a call.
Rob, we always talk about this from the standpoint of, this is a field of abundance. There's always something else there. And somebody said in the chat that blood is thicker than water. I mean, I've had this conversation on several occasions, where somebody in the family goes out and gets their real estate license. I had this conversation, just a couple of weeks ago, actually, where I was offering to find an agent for friends of mine up in Maine. And they said, well, we have this, my sister-in-law is a realtor. And I said to them, okay, look, you know what, I'm just going to ask you this question and you don't have to answer it, but just think about it. Is she a good realtor or is she just family? And they didn't take a second to respond that she's family and that's all there is to it. And I was like, fine, but if you feel that, they're not doing the job well, just let me know and I'll get you somebody else. And more to this point, I was looking for houses for my plumber. And one day he actually showed up at my house, which is strange for a plumber anyway. Did they actually show up? But he said, I just stopped by to tell you that, it turns out my mother-in-law is a realtor. And, if I tell my wife we can't use her, in order to use you, then I'm going to be divorced. So I said to him, don't even think about it. I understand completely. And he's still my plumber.
Right. So Robert, in your years of leadership, absent some guidance, how many people you think would zag the wrong direction and maybe even mouth off and say, I can't believe you did that to me versus, right? And I mean, I think in our ecosystem, our world here, I think a lot of people, being that we're so passionate about what we do, sometimes emotion gets the best of us and we might go and tell off the mechanic and go find another mechanic and it's the wrong solution. Right?
Absolutely.
So, and I saw Angie shared that it happened to her and she said it was like a punch in the gut. It was painful, but she actually got 2 good referrals from it. So maybe this millionaire call here is kind of went down a little rabbit hole in terms of, how do we process, what success is. And, your bank account is really a combination of the decisions that you make and the value that you add to the business that you're in, right? And
let me just add a tangent to this just a little bit, because I think it really plays into the same conversation. Is, when a friend tells you that they're going to be listing their house, but they're not going to list it with you, because they don't want it to impair the friendship. Or maybe they don't want you to know really the extent of their finances, whatever. Inside, the first time it happened to me, yeah, I was like, are you kidding me? But then I realized I'm not going to give up this friendship because I really like them, and that maybe there's some truth to that. So my response to them was, I get that, fully, and I support you in that decision. How about if you let me recommend 3 realtors to you who I think would do a great job for you? And they were like, that would be great. And in each time this conversation has come up and I've said that, I've ended up getting a referral fee at least.
right. And Robert, as I hear your stories and you have a lot of experience to share, I'm reminded of another abundant story where you're talking about the relationship that you had and you needed a listing somewhere. You called one of your competitors, said you have something coming on, and can you finish the story from here? Because it's not, you might think that these stories are made up, but I promise you, I'm never going to call Robert or anybody and say, hey, let's make up a story before this. This is all the truth, and you can sense the sincerity. Share that story, Robert.
So I had a prior client call me up who had moved out of state and wanted to move back. But they had very specific needs in terms of the towns that they wanted to be in and the amount of money that they could spend. And obviously the amount of money they could spend didn't really line up with the towns that they wanted to live in. But I looked, and of course there were no properties on the market for them. And then I thought, you know what, I've got this realtor who I'm friendly with, who I know does a lot of business in one of those towns. And I called him up, and we chatted for a little bit, and then I told him what I was looking for. And he said to me, you're not going to believe me, but I'm on my way to the house that you're describing right now. He said, and as soon as I get it together, I'll call you. He said, and I imagine that you'd want to get your people in before I put it on the MLS so that they wouldn't have to do highest and best and all of that. And I was like, that would be wonderful. And then, he said, well, I owe you for the transaction that we had 2 years ago, where you brought me into a deal, on your own when, a buyer said to you, I don't want to do dual agency. Can you recommend an agent? And you referred them to me, and I made a nice commission on that. So I owe you.
So great story. And I'm going to take it a step further, Robert, and say some of us have these territorial fights where, hey, I'm the number one or the number two agent in a particular market. And believe it or not, some of the competition might even go there and trash talk you when they're trying to get a listing. Oh, you don't want to list with so-and-so. If I were in that type of an environment, I would meet my competitor, say, hey, if we're going to be selling each other's listings, we're going to be working in the same environment, hopefully for a long time. Let's take the high road and let's see if we can both benefit from our affiliation with each other. Right? Like that's a zag that's not anticipated. And most people's reaction is, I have to put somebody down in order to elevate myself. But that's a perfect example of, what you put out in the universe kind of comes back to you, by, doing the right thing. And this also is a mindset shift in terms of there's no inventory. How many of us, and I want to ask this question honestly, when you are looking for something, when you say there's no inventory, how many of us have actually called the top 3 agents, the top 3 selling agents, or the top 5 selling agents in the area where you're looking to find something for your client and said, hey, my name's Robert Garver. I wanted to see if you had anything coming up. I have a client with this need, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, so David, you've done it. Anybody else have done that? Maybe you call people that you don't even know. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? They can say no. And how many people have called you in your primary farm and said, what do you have coming up?
Hopefully, if you're active in your marketplace, you already know those 3, 4, 5, 6 agents, and you pick up the phone, you're calling a colleague they might be your competitor, but they're, more than an acquaintance, maybe a friend. And you could do a deal together. They have something coming soon that's not on the MLS. They're not on their social media. How a lot of deals happen.
I mean, if you have an abundance mindset, David, you're not intimidated to say that somebody else is good, right?
I want to work with a good agent. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at a number of things right now on the MLS and trying to be as active on this call as I can be. And I see somebody I don't know, Lauren Lispy, and I looked her up and I saw what she represents, and I want to connect with her off the call and see how there's maybe referrals we can do together, because it looks like I can align with her. This is what it's about. It's reaching out. It's putting yourself out there. It's building a relationship ahead of time so that deals can come together. The moment I came on board, I met a couple agents in South Florida, and they're selling things right now that I sold the same house or down the road a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Why not work together? We have similar clientele.
Yep. So there's a shift or a pivot, right? You know, you're complaining about no inventory, you know, why don't you go to where the inventory is manufactured and take some solace in the story that Robert shared, because Robert, he was a competitor of yours, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I mean, and you know, from what I know, you both do a lot of business in the same neighborhood.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
that's true.
that's, I think most people would have taken the other approach. And then when you called them up, you'd be like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, I hear that you trash talk me at every listing.
Yeah, no,
So this is like such a great group. I so look forward to Fridays. Fazia, yes, Lauren Lispy does rock. And you know, she's so talented, and so she has a humility as well. So that's why
I want
I
to
think
buy that Highland Beach listing I'm looking at. That's nice, Lauren. We
Thanks,
unfortunately you need
guys.
12 million. You need 12 million for that one. Yeah.
Thank you.
yes, look at that, we got you on camera. You know, Lauren is great. You're killing it, and yet you have time to share with us here. I'm so impressed.
Thank you.
But so just think a little bit differently, right? You know, next time you have no inventory, you know, call your competitor and, hey, you have something coming on. You know, maybe, you know, grab a cup of coffee with your arch enemy, because you're both going to do better if you work together. Right? It's only the people that live in the scarcity mindset that are afraid to take that leap. Right? And I'm gonna guess that the majority of us haven't called our competitors that have a lot of business in the market where we want to be and said, hey, do you have anything coming on? Right? And I think that serves everybody well. So yeah.
So what did I miss? Rob, what did I miss with Lauren? I had to take a call, unfortunately.
We just said that Lauren's the best in what she does.
What does she do?
She's an awesome agent in our East Delray office.
Okay.
And she has time like you do to come on these calls and share and listen. And, you know, I really, you know, in my time to get to talk to her, she's very grounded and willing to learn. That's what we're all about here. So if we can, you know, share ideas and call people that we have a mutual benefit to helping instead of being angry. You know, I know it's not the point of the call today, but it's kind of gone down that road. And, you know, that mechanic, you know, I hopefully I'll have a story for you about 7 new pieces of business that came to this gentleman because he did the right thing. And, you know, his car will survive a lot longer. You know, I mean, if you're in Bergen, this gentleman's in Bergen County, you know, with a high-end auto mechanic that's hard to find. That guy's got some referrals, right, Bruce? I mean, you know, Bergen County, there's very little that's not worth listing. So
I'll tell you, it's funny. I have a mechanic. This blew me away. He did some work. One of my kids' cars wasn't under warranty. He did some work for me. I ended up getting a connection with him. And, you know, the guy owns like he owns a shop. You don't think much of it. Guy's worth like, he owns tons of real estate. He's made millions and millions of dollars of real estate. It's just so funny. Now he's kind of a friend, but it's just crazy, you know, to the other point about the liquor store. You just, you know, do the right things with your money, and did a lot of subdividing too, but yeah, you never know.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your hour every week. And, you know, I learn, you know, from my conversation, you know, I learn and I share, and I think it can benefit us all. And when you have defeat, you have a choice of how you're going to proceed from there. And, you know, sometimes the ones with the relatives and the friends, they sting the most, or the mechanic. You have a decision on how you're going to handle that. And, you know, getting a new mechanic and being angry guarantees no new business. Having a conversation and saying, hey, do you mind going out of your way to see if you can, you know, find somebody to refer to me? You don't even need to say replace the deal that you gave me, but, you know, could you help me and maybe, you know, refer a client or two to me? I think most people would do that. and you'll find out that you're better for it. So there's the lesson to becoming a millionaire, is doing the right thing. Robert, did you have?
I just wanted to say one last thing. I'm sorry. I hadn't intended on speaking so much today, but I had the intention of just wanting to pass along this story that happened to me just yesterday with a client of mine who lives here in the neighborhood, but had gone to Ohio because his cousin was in hospice. And so I was talking to him, just to see how he was doing, and he was very stressed out and everything. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, his cousin did pass away. And I was talking to him, and he said, I don't know what to do. I mean, we have to have an estate sale. I have to arrange to get the household and everything. And I said, listen, let me handle that for you. I'll take care of it. I'll have somebody call you the next morning. And he was like, can you do that? And I said, sure. So I researched, I found him a great agent in Ohio, right in the town where his cousin lived. The guy spoke with my client the next morning, as I had told him he would. And my client called me saying, thank you so much. I mean, the weight is off my shoulders, and I'm so excited that, we'll get this wrapped up the right way. I mean, it's easy. You just have to
So knowing Robert for many years, he did that for the right reason, and it also gets paid. I mean, how does it get better than that, right? I mean, I don't think when you heard about this, the sad story about somebody passing, you're like, oh, here's a way for me to make money. You're like, let me see if I can help somebody and avoid putting them in touch with somebody that might not be the best ethical or qualified person to handle it, because you don't want to have somebody take advantage of you in a vulnerable time. And that's the real essence of what you're talking about, is like doing the right thing, also gets you paid. So I appreciate you sharing that. And everybody have a wonderful, productive weekend. It looks like the plume of smoke is away from us here today, here in New Jersey.
Thank goodness.
Have a great weekend, Bob.
From the Canadian
See you
Fire.
next
Yes,
week, Rob.
Have a great weekend. You guys make these calls the best.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Have a
Rob.
great weekend. Thank you.
Bye.